And three
love to have
kids.
them in
Yeah,
your
3.
house.
We're all very creative.
Rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw a wonderful interview with a toy designer who happened to have a husband, Jan, who is in the security industry. And Megan is the host for this segment.
Well, hello. So I'm happy to introduce Ian White, who is the husband of Louise White. And Ian is involved with you you do engineering that involves security systems for things like consumer products. So can you tell us a little bit about your companies and the kind of things that they hope to achieve to keep people safe?
Sure, Megan. So I work for 2 companies in the Washington, D.C. area. One is called Acquired Data Solutions, and the second is called Threat Surface Solutions Group. So as an engineering company, we're focused on threat engineering, which is essentially we develop and integrate sensors, so whether acoustic, vibration, power, for, I guess, both government agencies and also companies who might need them in their products. On the cybersecurity side, we actually have, a different approach. By the year 2020, there will be 50 billion consumer IoT products essentially around the globe. So that's almost 7 per person on the planet. And the problem is, as great as it is that human beings have become connected, it's also sort of exposed parents, as an example, by putting essentially things like video game consoles, by putting baby monitors in their homes, by buying their children every connected device they can find at any toy store. They've created a gateway into their home. And they've also sort of exposed their children to, they've made their children almost an access point. So because your computer system and your home router is connected to everything else in your home, you've created all kinds of potential danger zones in many ways. So a company like ours, we work with manufacturers sort of in the R&D and manufacturing side to look for the vulnerabilities so that hackers can't do that.
Now you do things like, for example, you have put security systems into things like baby monitors. So how do you do this? How do you keep hackers out of these systems? And what can hackers do if they get into them? Like, what are the risks?
So what a company like ours would do is that we would work with a manufacturer of baby monitors to effectively, when they're, creating their next new line of products, we would actually go through the product as it's being designed and made. And our cyber team would actually do, very advanced cyber penetration testing on the product. And then we would actually say to, let's say, whether it was, because Motorola makes a lot of baby monitors, we'd go to a company like a Motorola and say, well, this is how we were able to hack into the device. These are the changes you have to make to the actual system. And then we would make recommendations. Whether they follow is another story. But
You would hack without their permission? They
well-
have a legal team protect you?
Well, so basically what they would do is they would actually provide us with the physical product so that we would request, we'd look at what they make.
But you would need first their permission for that.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, because we work with government, ADS's main client base is government. So we work with the TSA, we work with DHS, we work with NIH. So we have permission to access systems, obviously. But on the consumer front,
My point as a YouTuber is if I do, let's say, a product review,
right?
and I say that your system could be hacked, and it's really big damage control for the firm, for me as an influencer to tell the world that this can be broken, and their sales goes down, so they can
Right.
sue.
Right.
In your case, it's pretty much similar. If you can tell a firm that your security system is not secure, and you publish that, or someone knows about
Right.
it
So
kills the sales for a
so
while.
we're in a position where the companies actually come to us in the R&D phase.
Oh, I see.
Okay,
So it's before
yeah,
it
right,
hits the
right.
market.
Prevents this from happening.
Right, because
essentially.
there have been a couple of instances actually in the last couple of years that in terms of consumer stuff that has really, there was one router company, which I won't name, who during the manufacturing phase, they had malware that was inserted into their system as the product was being made on the assembly line, and it was like a Trojan horse. And it wasn't made to be activated until even a year, and basically the hacker who did it had the ability to essentially turn it on at any time of their choosing. And the manufacturer didn't even know. And then there was another issue that I think consumers are aware of the Philips Hue, which is like a connected IoT light bulb.
Okay.
And so a number of hackers in the Netherlands a couple of years ago discovered, because all the, I actually have them in my own home, the Philips Hue has a Bluetooth antenna that is actually built into every single model. And they're connected to essentially like a router that comes with the actual light bulbs. So a bunch of hackers in the Netherlands discovered, hey, we could potentially use this as an access point to people's computer systems. And that's exactly what happened. So now Philips sort of has had to go back to the drawing board and work with cybersecurity firms in Europe to effectively redesign the products to actually make sure that they're no longer an access point. Because you imagine that you buy 20 of these light bulbs and you didn't realize you just essentially gave a hacker potentially access to your connected stove, to your baby security monitors, to your garage door opener, your front door, your computer system, and your bank account.
It's frightening.
How do you market those products?
So,
Your services.
okay, so because we primarily work with government, we tend to sort of either get brought into projects behind the scenes, or we bid obviously like any other government contractor. But on the cyber physical side, we're now starting to work with actually U.S. and European automakers. The next big threat for consumers really is going to be autonomous cars, because there's this massive rush by both American, Japanese, and German automakers, to be the first to have like the autonomous fleet. But cars are like the easiest target in terms of hacking. I mean, everyone's dying to have their their autonomous Tesla or Mercedes or Lexus, but between the radio system, the Bluetooth built into the car, your own phone, which is connected to the car via Bluetooth, and obviously when autonomous cars become like a mainstream product, they have to be connected to a network somewhere. And people forget it's not just the actual car, it's the cellular network that's going to actually send your car the information of where you're going.
Okay.
So all of that has to be essentially be tested and protected. And there's a lot of companies like ours that are working on this project, but to say that I
how
won't be
do
buying
you-
one anytime soon is an
How do you
understatement.
win that competition over the other ones?
Oh, okay. So on our side, what has made us successful is that cybersecurity has become like a huge industry, obviously. And we decided as a company that rather than just focus on network security, which is basically 95% of cyber companies, we were going to actually go after cyber physical, which was actual devices. Because while everyone's concerned about someone reading grandma's email to them, on Yahoo or whatever, the reality though is that what matters is the fact that your cell phone is a physical device, your tablet, your work computer, your stove. Consumers are now buying millions of connected appliances. They're buying things like AC controllers.
great technology.
Right. So the problem is consumers love the idea of convenience, and they love the idea of being able to control everything in their home using one
It
device.
comes with a price.
Right. And the price is you're essentially giving someone access to your life. And while government isn't necessarily the enemy in this case, there are a lot of hackers who are very smart around the globe who recognize that if you decide to connect your stove to your home router, which a lot of people are doing, and they hack in, they can actually turn your stove on while you're sleeping. I mean, imagine that apparent, your worst nightmare.
I think hackers is fine. Maybe more or less it's just money, or like that's what they're after. But like in case what we saw with the Russian government, when they actually want to just imagine if Putin wants to turn thousands of stoves and a lot of
Right.
Americans burn, and that's a real threat. That's as a government that's not friendly to us.
Right. Oh, yes.
that-
Cyber,
that,
right.
that can do quite a bit of
how
damage.
how have the rise of the drones recently? Like you
Oh,
see
yes,
drones
right.
for everything. You see drones for toys, for photography, for news. But how have like the popularity of drones affected your business?
Okay, interesting you asked that. So drones have become such an issue that the number one issue right now facing correctional facilities, both in the United States, I'm actually going to Mexico in a month for a trade show that's actually just really about security with things with drones. Drones are being used to fly contraband into prisons, and it's happening in New Jersey, it's happening in Maryland,
unbelievable.
Virginia, Washington State. And the problem is that the prisons obviously are not set up to, obviously they have guard towers, but they obviously don't have, the type of equipment to block a signal. So we're now being approached as a company and a few others in the DC area because we offer a drone detection system. And the reality is that the prisons obviously don't want to have guys standing on their towers, shooting drones out of the sky, because there's a liability if the guy misses. They're not going to obviously have missile systems at prisons to shoot down drones. That's like never going to happen. So protecting, I guess, prison systems, protecting critical infrastructure, protecting, like we're in Manhattan. We're in essentially the second or third busiest city in the world. And there's a lot of critical infrastructure in this part of Manhattan in particular. So protecting buildings from being attacked by a drone, drones can be used for espionage. For essentially to do corporate espionage, to spy on what a company is developing. So drones are becoming an actual terrorism issue on a lot of levels, because drones can be used to essentially spy on things like power grids. They can be used, obviously, to spy on for example, we live near three of the busiest airports here in the New York area: Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. There is a genuine fear that at some point someone is going to fly a larger drone, like one you can buy at like a regular toy store, into a path of an airplane and cause that plane to have to do an emergency kind of veer situation and potentially crash into, God forbid, the New Jersey Turnpike. So we sell or market a type of product that uses very advanced actually acoustic systems that can actually distinguish a drone coming from about 2 kilometers away from, let's say, trucks going by on 95 or the cranes in Elizabeth. And then, but the other issue, of course, is once you detect a drone, how do you bring it down?
Especially if they put it way
Right,
high.
right.
I can put my drone really, really high.
Yeah, they
And, you
can
know,
go to amazing.
And you have companies like Amazon who soon want to launch essentially drone delivery. So you're going to have a sky above our heads. Like we used to joke
Full
as
of
kids.
drones.
We wanted to know when we would have like the Jetsons, and you'd be able to have your flying car. Well, the flying car is coming, but it's going to be essentially what's delivering your pizza or your movie or your new shirt. And the problem is that how does a government facility, a school, an airport distinguish between what's friend and foe? And so the issue, once you have detected a drone, is what do you do with it? So there are various solutions in regard to actually firing like nets out of guns that will bring the drone down in a controlled way. Our solution that we're working with a startup at the University of Maryland is to actually almost have like a little kamikaze drone. It's a 3D printed drone in the shape of a turtle that has a vertical takeoff sort of system that can be inexpensively manufactured, and then effectively it's like a one-time use. So you determine where the drone is coming from. You can actually see it on a camera that starts up whenever you track it, and then the drone actually takes off from a little launch pad and flies into the drone to knock it off course or to bring it to a controlled landing on the ground. And there's a lot of companies like ours in the United States, places also like in Israel, they're working on sort of advanced ways to do this. Because, eventually at some point you're going to look up over Manhattan and there's going to be, thousands and thousands of drones.
I still don't have, but I don't think it's legal for me. I can fly my drone in the Long Island, in New
Right.
Jersey, but I don't legally
At a certain
allowed-
height, at a certain height.
I cannot fly it here in New York, in the
Right.
city.
But eventually it'll happen.
Fireforce.
Eventually,
Eventually
it
it'll
will
happen.
happen soon. I would say. Within
I,
like
I,
10
I would
years,
I would
it'll
have to
come.
bet I would have to bet that with the clout that a company like Amazon has, that eventually you'll be able to literally go downstairs here in New York City at some point and a drone will land in front of the building and drop off like
Something
you
sometimes
ordered
like
something
5 minutes
ago.
ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
that will happen.
Definitely.
Let's go back to your marketing position with a security firm. How do you market those services? Like, what's the trick there?
So in a really competitive field like ours, we obviously do trade shows because it's impossible to sort of reach the global audience without doing trade shows.
But do you have your own YouTube channel? Do you have your own educational video? Do you have like press? Like, what do you do as a marketing person? Because you're not only a security firm,
Right.
you're personally responsible for making, getting those contracts.
So we use, I guess, traditional. Our website is our most effective. I sort of live with HubSpot. HubSpot is my life. But I actually don't find things like Twitter and
Social media is not helpful.
it's effective only from the perspective of
Do you do
showing.
ads? Like you take your big bosses in the government to dinner. What do you do? Like you buy,
That's illegal now. You can't do that anymore.
Well, you can buy the Super Bowl box. And,
For us, a lot of it because our company's been around for about 20 plus years.
entertaining clients is illegal.
It's not as kosher as it once was.
So
Really,
kosher now?
so really, it's sort of because we have an established track record as a company working with government agencies, they already know who we are and what our capabilities are.
Of course, it's easier,
Yeah,
but still, what do you do?
So recently, what we've done is that we actually just opened our first branch actually in the UK. So we actually have a new sort of branch of ADS in the UK that's handling England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and the EU.
Okay.
And then we're hopefully going to be launching after our Mexico trade show.
Why do you need extra branch? With Skype, internet, everything, phone, you can fly. What's the necessity to be there all the
Our
time?
type of products are better sold when you actually get a chance to see them
in
physically.
person.
Yeah.
It sounds like a
It's-
lot of your business is like word of mouth and like
It is.
trust
It
and
is.
connections
It's a
that
personal
you have.
sale.
Yeah, That's exactly
I
what
I
it
mean,
sounds like.
part of our client base is also like on the defense side. So we work with large defense contractors. So and in the defense world, once you've sort of established yourself and you've done a good job on a number of projects for 4 or 5 years, they tend to come back to you. Smaller companies now are actually doing better in the defense side because the government doesn't necessarily want to go to all the majors and just throw hundreds of millions of dollars at like a new
So they
airplane.
want to like have lots
R-
of
right.
suppliers.
'Cause also, a lot of the really good work is being done by smaller companies, and I think that's also
But they don't have the resources like big ones.
we don't, but we have a lot of the smarter people.
Yeah, and you'll grow
But
eventually.
in the world of like, YouTube, what I do, for example, I own a lot of equipment on my own. I can film a lot of things. But here, for example, where we now,
Right.
I know the equipment is better, the
Right.
set is better, lights is better. So it's really difficult to compete with us with the big firms.
Well, large defense contractors would use a company like ours because,
They have unlimited resources in terms of
Right.
talent as well.
but we're okay, so I would say in our case, we have proven our, I guess, proficiency, especially on the threat sensor side. We do a lot of work on RF. We do a lot of work with optical, acoustic, vibration, and power. And a lot of the sort of products that we've developed over the years have come out of projects at, let's say, Navy research labs or Army research labs. So on the defense side, there's a feeling that if it came out of the military to begin with, that they're working with essentially like their own.
Okay.
It's interesting how it started out being, military, and now it really has trickled down into consumer products.
Yeah.
And this is something that more people really need to know about, because a lot of people might not even think about these threats, but they need to realize that, how important these services are, that, every single one of these products that could potentially be hacked, people need to know that these products are basically being tested before they get onto the market to know that,
Right.
the hacking
Well,
can't happen.
I would argue that cybersecurity threats against physical devices are a bigger terrorist threat than,
Yeah.
I guess, than traditional terrorism. Having myself actually lived abroad and I have a lot of family in Israel and other places. America is like a unique society. Like we're sort of, I would say there are obviously parts of Western Europe, Canada that are like us, but our reliance on connected devices. You walk down 9th Avenue, and
Yeah.
no one's talking to each other. They're all on their cell phones.
Yeah.
People are sitting in Starbucks, not talking to anybody. They're on their laptop, and they go home and they press 3 things on their phone and they start the stove up and they get the washing machine going. And I'm as guilty as anybody else. But the truth is that we don't have the, I guess, infrastructure in place in this country yet to prevent, in many ways, a wide-scale kind of cyber attack that would, as people who live here in New York and New Jersey, 9/11 was a horrific day in the city's history, something we'll never forget. But I have to say that, and I know people who died on 9/11, so it's like a very personal thing. But at some point, someone is going to try to turn off the power grid, and just speaking from experience, having lived in rather large cities most of my life, Toronto, New York, Chicago, D.C., and London, if someone turned off the power in New York City for a week, we would have chaos in this city
Oh, yeah.
that would make 9/11.
I'm fully prepared for this.
Right.
I have 2 generators that I
Right.
purchased. They are sealed. I have the gas. I have everything. I thought about it, and I'm pretty much planning
Yeah.
for that.
It's-
The guys like I'm in the banking world, so I'm pretty much thought about it. So
Yeah,
I'm,
you
I'm,
worry about it.
I worry about it also.
And actually years ago, I think you remember, Homeland did an episode about the fact that the vice president had a pacemaker and that one of the characters had to essentially, hack into the vice president. And one of the people on our team actually is a former NSA cybersecurity person, and he got really upset watching that because he was kind of like, why are they discussing a topic that we're actually trying to prevent? Because it's a real thing. I actually have people on my team actually whose background is in sort of doing cybersecurity on the medical side, because a hospital is one of the most important pieces of
It's
critical.
giving them ideas.
Right. And look, terrorists don't need ideas from, but but protecting critical infrastructure like a hospital is enormously important, because could you imagine, like, the last thing you think about when you go into a hospital, you're having a procedure, like, oh my God, why are the lights turning off?
Yeah.
Like, why are they unable to even access medical? There was an incident in D.C. years ago where a hospital that I won't name essentially got hacked into, and someone stole their computer records, and then they were sent like a Bitcoin kind of threat, like, if you don't send us, $10 million in Bitcoin, we're going to erase essentially 50 years of patient records. Hospital couldn't function. So there's all these sort of problems that are sort of, a lot of things don't even make the press. And it's not even a question of the fact that the
doesn't make the
it doesn't make the
press.
press. It's not even a question that the media is suppressing it. When it comes to government's certainly not advertising.
Yeah.
If somebody hacks into a government agency or to a system, because the last thing you need to know is give people ideas, and also you don't want to let the hackers know.
And they feel glory by
Right.
that, and someone else wants to have
Yeah.
the same.
Right, and proof of this is that all the major sort of hacks that we hear about in the media, we're finding out about them 6 months after they've happened. And when the credit agencies like Equifax all got hacked into, they were aware that happened obviously probably within the first few days. As consumers, we didn't hear about it for probably half a year to a year, and part of that was obviously
They're trying to get those guys.
right,
They
exactly.
don't want to-
So by going on
if they know that
right.
they are on them, they would be
right.
more careful.
Right, and also they want to know how they found out so quickly that they did it. So in regard to like consumer stuff, especially toys, parents today, it's interesting because like when my wife works in sort of traditional, baby toys, and I work with much bigger toys, things that have much more, in many cases, influence on people's lives on a lot of levels. Parents, think they're doing like the right thing by buying their kid like every new like electronic device. I was fighting with my son last night about his Xbox because he wouldn't like turn it off after 3 hours. But by buying all these connected devices, and you think you're exposing your kids to the world, and they're going to see the world. And I use YouTube all the time. I have a 4-year-old daughter who is so well versed in YouTube. It's unbelievable. She actually walks in the door after school. Daddy, I'm going on YouTube, and she's
She
4.
needs to have her own channel. Like me.
Right, right. And she's very cute. But I'm amazed though that a 4-year-old is already from a technical standpoint. She knows how to navigate like a browser. She knows how to type YouTube into the browser. She knows what to look for on YouTube. So either I have really
My
smart
son's
kids.
4 years old, and he does exact same thing. I
Right,
don't think your
yeah.
daughter is alone.
No.
A lot of kids of that age already that knowledge.
But the problem in the home is that once you've connected all the critical things in your home, like heating, like electricity is controlled by the whatever, but things like heating, connected appliances. The first thing I do, I remember I bought a new television a few years ago. My kids thought I was crazy, but I put a little piece of black tape over the camera. And my kid said to
I
me,
do this.
"Why are you covering up the camera? We want to see our friends."
I do this on my
R-
phone.
Right. And I explained to my kids that Daddy had a very interesting meeting with some people at Princeton University, and they showed me a few access points via a video game system I won't besmirch because I own 2 of them. And they showed me how essentially hackers were watching everything you do in your house through the video game console. And my kids were like all of a sudden like, oh my god, they're like putting like pieces of black tape on mommy's laptop and my phone, but it's real. It's real. And I laughed today. I used to be a consumer tech writer, so I used to like write about this stuff professionally, and I had someone write to me once, well, I'm buying a new fridge that has like a connected system and has like a touch screen, has a camera, and I said, so you understand you just put a video camera in your kitchen, and I would advise putting a little piece of black electrical tape over the camera, because in the morning when you might not necessarily be dressed the way you want to be seen, someone is potentially now watching you in your kitchen, watching your children in your kitchen, and I think that people don't even think about that. Aside from giving them access potentially to your bank account, but
And
they're
you're not
watching.
paranoid. You're really
oh.
talking about the real stuff.
Oh, actually,
Absolutely
I've seen
supposed to know
stuff. I've seen stuff from work, just working with some of our clients. Some of the problems that they've had, that it's sort of like I've literally like crossed off certain things I'll never buy.
Yeah.
It's just it's the way it is. Look, we live on a planet where everybody wants to be able to connect, and that's not
Any
going.
life hack for the audience? Or what's the future holds? Like what to do? Any short?
Well, I
advice?
will say this. As a consumer, you don't have a lot of control over obviously how much testing a manufacturer or vendor does to a product you buy. So in many cases, I think that when
Does review helps?
I think that not enough of that has been done, actually, in terms of, I guess, people who do review sites. As a former reviewer, someone who used to review consumer IoT, I used to review televisions and appliances. Not enough work has been done by the magazines, the big ones, to essentially say that this product has been tested. We tried to hack into it. We tried to see where the vulnerabilities were, and that would be helpful. But the thing about cyber is that the cyber world changes daily. So on the one hand, you can criticize manufacturers for not thinking ahead, in terms of the hacking, but hackers are smart. And I mean, even as a company, the people that I work with who have NSA and other agency backgrounds, we have to effectively, I guess, up our game. Almost all, every month we have like a meeting within our company with other groups we work with, and we talk about new things of malware. We talk about new problems that people have seen, and we actually sort of have to go back to the drawing board and come up with even better testing solutions to find things. Like one of the things,
constant
yeah,
battle.
it's constant battle, and like we're
They're getting better.
actually one of the things I have seen of late that's of interest that we're starting to I guess do some early work with a company in the UK. The guy who runs the company came out of the semiconductor background. And as we saw recently, there was the whole thing in terms of the Spectra and like being able to hack devices when they were being made. Effectively, you put like almost like a malware in a chip as the device is being made. So the problem is, while my company can effectively go into the device while it's being made and see if anyone's done anything, there's really no like Band-Aid to put on a product, sort of during the manufacturing phase to make sure that no one can do that. And we actually found a company that we're starting to talk to who actually have a process where as something is being made on the assembly line, they can almost put like a layer, like almost like a virtual layer of security on top of like the chip so that it can't be
People
hacked.
like you and me who care about those things and who know a little bit about those things, pretty much aware, and we're cautious and we look
Right.
for those things. How do you get attention of folks who do not aware of those
Okay.
things? And is there a way to reach out? And
Yeah.
'cause people who are serious about it pay attention. They will find.
Well,
more or less.
I will say this, as I tell my children all the time, because they have so many connected devices, we're such good parents. Change your password a lot. I change some of my passwords like weekly in some of the devices I use. Also, never give your password out to anybody, ever. Also, clear your cache and your history and your searches on your browsers. Like, I actually do it every day. I actually go onto my 2 work computers and clear them out every day. Also, in terms of, know who you're buying from, especially like consumers who are concerned about being, identity fraud and having their accounts hacked. I generally only buy from, believe it or not, I only buy from 2 or 3 websites on the entire web at this point. They're the only ones I trust. Amazon's, I have to say, is really, really good in terms of security.
As a photographer, I can tell you, there is a new market right now for the used cameras, because each camera has its own like a kind of number. So once they use that camera for something illegal, they want to sell it and buy another
right.
one.
Of
So
course, of course.
you get
You never think about that, but
a
that's
whole
true.
bunch.
Like,
But then the FBI comes to you and saying, what did you do with this camera?
Right.
They have no idea that it's someone else
somebody
tried
else
to
had it.
use it for that. So
That's frightening. You never think about that, but that's something that
Right.
probably happens pretty easily. A lot of this stuff is stuff you never think about, but it's something that
We've
happens
we've
pretty
traded,
frequently.
right? I would say we've traded, I guess, safety for convenience. And it's sort of like consumers have sort of weighed the two and said, do I care more about the ability to have access to everything versus am I exposing my life to the world unwittingly? And as a parent, I'm a little more cognizant of the fact that I don't want people hacking into my whole computer and stealing images of my children. I don't want people knowing where my children live. I make a point when we go on vacation. We actually don't even post pictures of our vacation on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram until after we're back. Because I've actually had friends in New York and New Jersey who have gone on Facebook and said, we're going on a cruise today, and by the way, we live in so-and-so New Jersey, and we're not going to be home for a week and a half.
Oh, no.
And people have actually broken into their homes.
yeah, it's like advertisement.
Yeah,
for
so you're
thieves.
right. So I have a rule with my kids that you can take 6 million photos on your iPhone while we're away, post nothing till we get home. And my kids thought I was crazy, and then I showed them a few things in the local New York papers and some of the New Jersey papers about people who they came back from a trip to Florida and their house was burglarized, and they were like, how did the burglars know they were there? And I showed them the posts on Facebook and Instagram, and they were like, wow. So there are little things parents can do. Also, parents have this I have to say, this is actually, I think, a good thing for parents.
going live.
Yeah, going live is bad. Parents have an obsession with posting their children and their names and where they go to school on social media. And as someone who works in the cybersecurity sort of field, I'm blown away that people sort of make that much of their life public. I mean, I hate to say that we live in that kind of world, but we live in that kind of world. And so I make a point of never posting photos of, I'm not even on Facebook anymore. Part of that is my job, but I actually like have a thing with my wife that I get really upset when my kids start posting photos of themselves like at home, and I'm like, don't show the world your life. Like you have friends. There's a reason why you have friends in the real world. They actually like play with real people. I think parents have gone a little too crazy to the other side, showing, oh, this is my kid, today he got up and he had cereal, and today we went to the mall, today we went here. A, nobody cares, and B, you're just exposing information about your life. Like people take pictures in front of their cars in a parking lot, and it shows your license plate. It's like we just told someone basically if they know how to go on the DMV or use their ability to find out where you live, what kind of car you drive. I don't know. People today are way too open. That's also a problem for the devices, because people put, they have their credit card information, they have medical information.
Social security numbers?
Yeah. It's like I've had my identities. It's ironic as someone who works in cybersecurity, but it's like
I can tell you, I went to school 20 years ago, and they still have that practice. When you come to the class, everyone puts their social security on as a form, and everybody takes a picture of the whole list. So it's like 50 people in the class, and everybody put their social
And you
security.
have to put your social security
you
number.
have
You don't
to.
have any choice, so they
Right.
kick you out of the class.
And that's what they. But that's schools don't change the policy still.
Still like
Yeah,
that.
it's-
The
it's-
schools and hospitals.
it's a problem that's only going to get worse before it gets better. And I think unfortunately we're going to have that one big cyber terror event.
If people want to have you more at our program, they can write, I guess, to us and put comments. And if there a way for them to reach out to you, do you want feedback? If
Oh, yeah,
someone
absolutely.
finds,
Absolutely.
what's the way?
So for our website, you can reach us at www.acquiredata.com, and our cyber business is Threat Surface Solutions Group. And then if they want to reach me with questions, they can reach me at info@acquiredata.com.
Got that?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And it's Valentine's Day, so feel free to take a little gem as
Thank
a
you.
token of appreciation.
Thank
You're
you.
gonna get a couple of extra for the kids
I-
if you want it.
no,
they're
they-
not edible.
They haven't. Oh, okay, I was going to eat it. I was like,
They're not edible?
No, they're not edible. They're just little trinkets.
okay, good that she told me I was about to pop in my mouth.
You can take some extra for the
Cut.
children if you want.